Riot just announced a gameplay update schedule for Garen, Darius, Skarner, and Mordekaiser, and these are all champions I play and love, though not so much Skarner anymore, and I've always known they've had some glaring problems as to why Riot has trouble balancing them. I have constantly had talks where I discuss with people the reality that just because a champion is strong doesn't mean their kit doesn't have problems. There is no way you could buff these champions in any meaningful way without making them horrible to play against. Some champions simply have kits with power allocated in some of the worst forms, but that power is the only thing propping them up and making them even remotely playable. A champion can be usable and their kit totally functional, yet they can still suck. Yes, they can do certain things right, like dominate the lane, deal tons of damage, or utterly destroy some matchups, and so on. For sure, some of you have had games where you completely dominated and carried thanks to that champion. None of that actually changes the fact that their kit is rather oppressive and, in some cases, honestly dumb. The first one I'll talk about is Mordekaiser, because I already had him in a video not too long ago. I got a lot of shit for calling him one of the most broken champions of the game, but it's true. Yes, you can kite him, yes, he has no mobility, and yes, crowd control destroys him. That doesn't change the fact that a champion can still have a downright broken kit, even if they have weaknesses. Mordekaiser's passive is much like old Sion's shield. New Sion has the shield still, yeah, but its power has been allocated elsewhere. Old Sion revolved 100% on his shield if you were playing him as AP. If you couldn't do anything against a shield to pop it before it exploded, it was gonna dominate you. He'd push the lane and hurt you. That's how Mordekaiser basically works right now. He pushes you down, builds a massive shield, and if you can't stop his push or deal with his shield, then you just flat out lose, unless you get jungler intervention, and even then, not all champions can actually gank him. Things turn from annoying to worse with his ultimate. It is the only ultimate in the game that can scale according to how badly you're losing. The enemy's fed champion is now your fed champion if you happen to kill them while the ultimate is up. A fed enemy carry can slaughter their entire team, for instance, and that's just plain stupid. Players will say that there are plenty of champions that can break his shield and deal with him now or stop his push. That's true, yet this is why straight buffing him will not happen, and this is why he requires a rework or power shift instead. If they just made his numbers stronger, then the number of those that can deal with him will drop significantly, and he'll be a pain in the ass to deal with. Garen and Darius are sort of the same deal right now. They do things a bit differently, but they're both huge lane bullies and outright shit on people. There are definitely other bullies in the game like Rumble for sure, but the difference is that Garen and Darius offer very little actual gameplay interaction when they decide to open up on you. Garen flashes on you or you run into him, then silences you and spins on your face so you're low enough to die to his ultimate. That's pretty much it. If you survive and are someone who can burst him down in return, then you win. If you can't, then he drives you off or he's already killed you. Darius is similar, but he can actually drag you in to start his onslaught. If he misses his pull, he'll likely get obliterated since he can't get to you, but if he's too dominant against your champion choice, there's not much you can do except wait for him to try again and hope you don't get snagged. If he does grab you, you either die or survive and can murder him in return, or you still just die because there's no way to fight back. They have different passives, but they're both seen as oppressive. Darius's does too much damage that ramps up too quickly because its maximum threshold is too small, and Garen's is a big healing buff that he can maximize by running into some bushes and jerking it while his health goes back to full. In teamfights, they both suffer tremendously because their means of engage is basically reliant heavily on flash. They get kited and knocked around like no one's business so badly that this weakness can make any leads they had in lane completely irrelevant. The enemy basically has to fall into their laps for them to be able to do anything in teamfights. I'll reiterate that. In teamfights, in an ideal situation, these two should rarely be able to get in range to actually score hits on vital targets. Even worse is that on equal grounds, as in no one is super fed, Garen and Darius will likely not be able to 100% anyone important before they get taken down or removed as a threat. Skarner is the one that will probably piss off a few viewers. This is like his third rework at this point, and Riot just can't seem to get it right. I'll just get into it right away. Skarner is the perfect definition of a purely win more type of champion. He doesn't do anything truly unique in the game anymore, and people usually imagine him in his best case scenario. His Q is his only source of damage, and it's overloaded as hell, while his E is still relatively useless and offers pathetic damage. His passive didn't really help anything because it mostly most situations it's hard to actually use unless you are already tearing them to shreds. His W is a huge source of his usability, and that was nerfed hard some time ago. Now the big one. His ultimate is probably one of the worst ultimates in the game. Yes, it can suppress someone and it can drag them back, but its usability is utter shit. You need to basically be in melee range for the thing to work, and even then the enemy team can respond to it easily, let alone your intended target can just blink out before it actually gets them. It's a super telegraphed ultimate, as your enemies know what you want to do as you get close to Skarner. You'll need your W to be up to use it, and using your flash is the only way to actually make the damn thing work. It becomes better by having upgraded boots, team movement speed amplifiers, and other items like Righteous Glory pumping you up. Even with all that crap stacked on you, you can still fail at getting a vital target with your ultimate. Hell, even if you do get someone, there's a likelihood that the enemy team will prevent you from even dragging them away, so you burn so much to basically stun an enemy champion and yourself for a few seconds. It gets even worse still because Riot decided to release Vi, who basically can accomplish whatever Skarner wants to do, but way easier, and she's honestly more effective. She could use Q to position herself for her ultimate and amplify it by using flash. Her damage is spread out around 4 abilities instead of just one like Skarner. Her means of crowd control are far easier to implement than Skarner, and her abilities are less telegraphed as well. We've all had those games where we see Skarner utterly shred people. That's one of his problems too. He snowballs way too hard and does way too much damage when ahead. All his damage is allocated onto his Q, so the more ranks he has into it and the more he feeds into it, the more devastating it is, along with his auto attacks of course. His gameplay is basically just running at someone and mashing Q until the enemy target dies and their opponent really has no chance of fighting off a fed Skarner. So I hope you've noticed a common pattern with these champions. They either shit on you or do nothing. In situations where they'd win, there is likely someone you could have picked that do their job better with less risk. They're definitely fun, as 3 of them are some of my favorite champions, and you can win with them in some games with their current state, but man, they resonate design flaws. I can't begin to figure out if they'll be receiving full overhauls or just power shifts, but we'll be getting our first glimpse of this next week. Remember to like the video to support the channel and to subscribe if you haven't yet. I have a few sponsors that are helping me maintain this channel, such as Loot Crate and Pro Build Systems. I have links to their websites on the description below. Use my code for a discount, and using my links also directly supports my channel.